moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And good Sunday evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in Corin's reading room, hosted by none other than Mr. Corin Nimbick himself. And here is the man, the myth, the legend, right now. How you doing, sir? How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I keep getting notifications that I don't have the best connection this evening, but we're gonna go for broke. See if everything works out well for all of us. A couple of folks have joined us. Thanks. We're live tonight. I know I have been very sneaky in my in my pre-recording. You know, I've been very busy traveling the world, doing the things. But we're here, and I want to thank Rick and KLRN Studios for hosting Corin's Reading Room, and thank Most Jackson for his beautiful opening music that's so jazzy and cool and relaxed, and we love that. We love being relaxed, don't we?
I keep telling everybody I'm going to figure out how to sneak into your luggage because you keep getting to travel everywhere, and I'm still sitting behind my desk. So
I've got lots of traveling coming up this year. I'll be doing several conventions overseas, and one Paris Manga, which is a very big show in Paris. And I'm doing a very cool show over in Berkshire, England, which people, when I post, I keep getting people from England saying it's Berkshire. I'm like, well, it's B-I-R-K, which I pronounce Burke. I don't know how you get Bach from Burke, but I'm going to just, you know. I'm not British, so I'm gonna have to just say they're right. What's up, Cicely and Raptor and Alan Ray? Lovely to have you all here, and all of the others who are joining and stuff. And then what's up, the universe of and webosphere out there. We're still. To this day, we are still on Philosophy of Fire, and I have not wanted to give it up yet because it's such an interesting book, and we've gotten into some really deep dives on it. I think we'll probably be able to finish it in a couple of more episodes, but I have these other books on standby about the Akashic Record that I'm dying to get into.
Dude, I'm looking forward to that one. I'm actually really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's gonna be rad. I got a couple. I'm gonna close these blinds here. I'm getting that weird weird reflection on me. There we go.
I just assumed you'd finally figured out how to ascend and we're about to leave us all.
Yes, that too. I'm hanging on by a thread, by a silver thread. Everybody got their coffee?
That was a thinly veiled Stargate reference for anybody who didn't catch it.
Yes. Yes, it is a good book. It is a good book, Raptor. It's a fantastic book. If anybody hasn't never gotten or if you haven't looked into the philosophy of fire yet, I'm sure you can probably find something online, maybe even somebody reading it. I should probably have done that. I could have read this thing 3 times over by now, right? But it's a fantastic book. The writer is Rosie Crucian. It's kind of Rosie Crucian philosophy. It's very interesting. And we're gonna dive in, man.
And actually, if they would like to check it out, they can simply scan the QR code on the screen right now. The Kindle
look at you.
$2.99. So
wow, they can get a copy paperback for $12.04 or $2.99 on Kindle. That is a good deal.
Yeah, especially because the hardcover is like expensive as heck. I did find cheaper ones finally, but the first time I tried to look that up, it was like almost $150 for the hardcover. But that was like some like second edition or something.
Well, wait till my son will get all these books. But when I pass away, I've got all my notes and stuff in them from when I read them. They'll be worth a fortune. I'm gonna have to put my name in these so people know who the hell the crazy guy is that's writing all over this nice book, and go, what a lunatic. But yeah, my son's my son's too eager to get my book collection. I'm like, hey man,
I mean, he isn't that eager. He hasn't hired a house painter yet.
He probably figures he can paint it himself, save a buck.
Well, no, it's a term from a show I've been watching. Anytime they hire a hitman, they're like, I need a house painter.
It's good stuff, man. Well, I have it marked here that we left off on page 128. So I'm going to assume that that's correct. And we'll dive in here on 128. And it says, as all life should be a constant evolution to a higher scale of existence, so must all real knowledge or philosophical science be an initiation preceding in a natural manner, advancing by specific degrees of growth, unfoldment, and attainment. In all true initiation, that of gradual growth or becoming the acolyte, must always prove worthy and well qualified, duly and truly prepared, lest he fall by the wayside. That is to say, he must perceive that the proclaimed knowledge does exist. He must sincerely desire to possess it. He must possess it and be perfectly willing to make every effort and whatever personal sacrifice is necessary for its acquisition. He must have passed beyond the stage of blind belief or superstition, the fear of bondage and dominion of appetite and sense desires. This is the meaning of being duly and truly prepared. He must also prove his fitness and show the absence in himself of that more subtle form of intellectual selfishness. Selfishness, which comes from the possession of what usually passes as knowledge, as also the desire for dominion over others less likely endowed for selfish purposes of his own. His motives, therefore, alone will determine whether he be worthy and well qualified. It is undoubtedly true that on every plane of life and in the process by which real knowledge is acquired, always by experience, because man is that which he has experienced. And we've talked a lot about that, that, we are what we've experienced, and that for the most part, until we step outside of ourselves, for the most part, we're kind of automatons in a sense that are just pre-programmed by our life experiences, what we were taught, how we grew up, the neighborhood we grew up in, what our parents were like, what type of school we went to, our religious background, and so on. And that's all the information that we're given to think with and to make sense out of reality with. And my teacher, Manu, who, I wrote this book, I'm sure that I've announced it 1,000 times, but creating a character for the stage or life. the new era acting technique that was developed by Manu Tupo at the American Repertory Company, where I studied for about 15 years. And, his whole entire point that he just constantly battered us with was was not being that kind of automaton, not being automatic in our approach to life and ourselves and our personalities. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a personality, or you don't, or you're not behaving with within this character that we've developed, but at least acknowledging that, well, we might not be who we think we are. And I know it seems weird, but to be able to consider that there's more potential for our personal experience, um the more that we can shuck off all of the old habits and routines and ways of thinking that we're stuck in. Factor all that with emotions, and it's a cluster, says Cicely. Yes, that is true. Um, the emotions are one of is that a lot of what we get triggered by today. Is emotional content, and you can see how on the news, especially, and propaganda really deals a lot with emotion. They want to hit you with the emotional messages, because when our emotions hit and we feel that upwelling of sensation, that becomes very real to us, and we can justify in our minds, well, if I feel it, it has to be true. And that's not necessarily the case. Emotions can come, like, for instance, if somebody tells you that your dog died, and you're like, what? Oh my God, my dog died. And you're just freaking out, and you're there, and they're like, just kidding. Well, when the message came across and the emotions hit, the reality was the reality. And good day down under. Oh no, don't tell me El Cazzo's here. It's going to be one of those nights, is it? What the meow is Silly Corky doing here? Wow. Well, now that you're here, the show can start, Cazzo. But I do find that interesting that it just brings that up, because man is that which he has experienced, and so what can we do to change that experience, and open ourselves up to something potentially new and dynamic within ourselves that will then change our relationship with reality and with the outside universe. So it goes on to say, man becomes that which he seeks to know. That is, wisdom is the result of a progressive becoming through experience. There results, therefore, a continuous transformation or transmutation of the motives, ideals, and perceptions of the individual whenever in his daily experience in life he is placed on the lines of least resistance or the natural order of evolution. I feel a coughing attack coming. I can't do that. We're live. This is termed the alchemical process of transforming or transmutation of the lesser into the greater. And alchemy is really cool. When you get into spiritual alchemy, I got some interesting books on that as well. The transmutation of the base metal into gold, and that's the transmutation of the lower emotions, the lower self, into a higher spiritual experience and plane of thought and action and behavior. So the alchemical process of transforming or transmutation of the lesser into the greater is just that, is trying not to be lazy in life and doing what little we can do, hopefully on a daily basis, to expand our own thinking and our own personal relationship with the universe, which then hopefully starts to change our relationship with those other people around us. Um, when you can set yourself aside for others. It's me and my wife are experiencing something like this right now, where we've had somewhat of a stranger enter our lives who desperately needs help, who've been basically abandoned by their entire family. And although it's not exactly our responsibility or up to us to step in and help this poor woman out, we've been putting ourselves aside and doing just that. And even though it's challenging, there is that there is a reward in that, in a way, because we're putting ourselves aside and saying, okay, yeah, this is not something that we would normally do, or a responsibility that we would normally try to take on, but it's the right thing to do. And so we've been doing it. And even though it's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster, it's definitely uh, provided us with kind of a different point of view, an outlook on life, because the poor lady is terminal. And that certainly makes one look at their own lives, because at some point in time, we're all going to be terminal down the road, and be knocking on the door for our final entry
So,
or exit.
hang on, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to make sure I heard something right. So, you guys are currently helping to take care of somebody who's terminal. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, yes, it turned out that way. It wasn't that that was going to be the plan, but this particular individual who came into our lives in a roundabout way, has basically been all but abandoned by her family, and she's up there in age a bit, and her brother, her sister, her kids, nobody is doing anything to help this poor lady, and it's just really tragic.
The only reason I was asking is because remember how sometimes we'll start talking about stuff and we'll have parallel thoughts while we're having conversations. We seem to be on a
Yeah.
par- we seem to be on a parallel life track right now, because I have somebody staying with me who's in like stage 5 renal failure. So,
Oh, wow.
and
Far
pretty much
out.
same situation. No, not anybody really to help her or anything. So I'm kind of the one. So it was just weird when you started bringing that up. I was like, okay, that's a little weird for us to kind of be going through the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Um, wow. Well, good on you, man. Good on you. Um, so it's kind of it's moments like that in life, though, that I think that when we are able to put our own needs and wants and selfish desires and motives aside, and do something that's outside of our comfort zone, more likely than not, there's going to be a growth, an emotional and a spiritual growth that comes out of it. KZ, what's up, buddy? um so it says, when men once comprehend this, they will understand the mystery of alchemy, the transformation or transmutation of baser metals into the pure and shining gold. Once men accept these truths, the conscience is awakened, and as they learn to know, they will begin to become. Excuse me. Yeah, it's interesting that this particular page must have been something else to me, because I wrote the hell out of this. I don't know if I'm going to read what I wrote, but
There's a
boy,
lot of notes in there, sir.
yeah, there's the rest of what this says must be very very fascinating to me. I haven't read this book in many years, but it goes on. It says, I squared this off too, so this must be important. Let's all pay attention. um, oh, great. My PC has 12 unstable, outdated drivers. Thanks, Avast, for the notification. Um, so it says, conscience is the struggle of the understanding in assimilating experience. It is the effort of the individual to adjust precept with practice, or, in other words, conscience is that living, active something which sits in judgment of our acts and issues warning against repetition of evils committed, thus helping to free the soul and increase man's ability to recognize the truth and to apply it in everyday life. Thus, while man is learning, if he also lives accordingly, he is actually growing or transmuting, and the process will be far advanced even before he becomes aware of any growth made. So that's interesting that we're touching on that, especially with both of what we're kind of going through, because that's it is these kind of moments when we're doing something that is not necessarily like forced upon us, but something that comes somewhat out of nowhere that requires our attention and our kindness and a softness. I think that the world we live in, right, man? What does it say, Corin? I have a girl to take care of my drivers. Well, lucky you, pal. Lucky you. I'm not talking about golf, okay? Um,
Nice.
and but yeah, man, I think it is important to kind of get outside of our comfort zone at times, and even if that means just changing up a daily routine. What do we get so locked into that we do the same thing pretty much every day? Do we always drive the same way to work every single day? Do we drive the same way home from work every single day? When we're coming home from work, can we take a different route just for the heck of it and see something different? More recently, I live so close to the beach and I rarely ever go to the beach. But more recently, I've just been like, you know what, man, I'm going for an evening swim. I'm going down there. I'm going to float in the ocean. And like in the last week or so, I've been down there floating in the water hey, I miss Australia too. Thanks, Vampire Babes. I've really been enjoying just getting up and driving the mile, to the beach. I could pretty much ride a bike there. It's like a mile and a half over to the beach, and just floating around, and it's been a game changer for me. It's been really, really lovely. But I'd be curious what I wrote here. I'm probably not going to read that, but I will continue down here. It says, "Man, know thyself," was written above the door of every temple wherein were taught the ancient mysteries. As the vision of the neophyte enlarged in relation to the labors and meanings of life, his power of comprehension and assimilation also increased proportionately. This was an evolution. And man, know thyself. That's one of those sayings. I really love that, because what is knowing thyself? What is knowing, getting to know ourselves? Because I think that it's easy to assume that we know exactly who we are, because we live in our bodies, and we think with our minds, and we feel with our emotions. So we must know ourselves. We must know what's going on. But I think every single one of us has somebody in our lives who thinks they know it all, who is so convinced. Maybe you guys are thinking about that about me right now. But I know Katso is. Somebody who just thinks that they have got everything dialed in, and that they know everything about everything, and what they say is exactly right. And I hope that that's not the kind of person that I am, or I hope that that's not how I think. And even when I catch myself, thinking that way, I'm at least separated enough from that reactive personality, just enough. I'm separated at least just enough to hopefully be able to um, uh, not get caught in that trap. You know what I mean? Where I just assume that I'm correct about whatever it is, because I do at least try to say, well, I could be wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, whether it's whatever the conversation may be. Generally speaking, it's the more heated conversations these days are politics, which I try to steer clear of for the most part. But when I am talking with someone who we have differing opinions on that particular subject, uh, I do tend to say, hey, time will tell. We'll see. I'm not saying this is the way it is. Something else could change my mind. Those kind of things, which is true for me. I'm not going to pretend that what I believe about any one particular subject is absolute, because I don't believe there are absolutes in the universe. I think in an abstract way there's absolutes, but at any given time, something that we perceive as an absolute can alter and change. You know what I mean? And you're always wrong, Katso says. Yes, 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 I know. But that's what's good about it. Being always wrong means that I don't ever have to be right. And that takes a lot of pressure off of me. uh, um, It goes on to say, what makes such an evolution seem impossible is that it cannot be conceived as being accomplishable in a single life. It is the result of persistent effort guided by high ideals, sometimes requiring many lives, all depending upon the continuity of the efforts made. There must, however, come a time when the consummation is reached in one life. This may be in our present life. This is the logical meaning of the saying of the Nazarene, it is finished. The mysteries of the Christ received a new interpretation after the First Nicene Council, and the church sought greater dominion over men and mundane affairs. It entirely lost sight of the great secret. Since then, it has constantly denied that such a secret teaching ever existed, and every crime known to man has been committed in order to obliterate reference to it from records and monuments. So it is finished. So it's similar. That kind of goes along with the other saying, "Man, know thyself," and it is finished. Yes, I get that in the Nazarene, when saying that it is finished, that there is a moment in time when I think that it is possible to have to truly know thyself. Not even death and taxes, no absolutes. Hey, I would say the last like 5 years of life, if you're really that terminal, who cares about paying taxes anymore? Just go for just the death, and then there's no more absolutes, right? Death
Well,
is an absolute, but if you believe in reincarnation, then it isn't an absolute. It's just a
well,
it's
well,
just
that's just it. Even if you don't believe in reincarnation, death is death. If you have any sort of faith, is basically a doorway. So there is no absolute.
Yes,
I want
exactly.
to keep. I want to
What
keep
happens after that is
But
still open to interpretation.
but yeah, I kind of agree with you. If you know you only have a couple years left to live, just tell the tax man to meh.
um, it says, let's see, but it makes it very hard for Katso and Sabrina to tell you the whole day that you are always wrong. I love being wrong. It's humble. There's a humility that comes with being able to admit when you're wrong, and not trying to grandstand and be right, even even if you're wrong. I'm sure we all know some folks like that too. They'd rather not talk to you for the rest of their lives than admit they were wrong, right? um, but it goes on to say here, the neophyte, as a result of setting into activity the law, when he asks upon himself the sacred obligation, brings upon himself these misfortunes by his disloyalty. A vow is like a boomerang. When an attempt is made to repudiate or disavow it, it will bring misfortune to the one attempting to break it. Many of those who composed the Council of Nice knew of the traditions of the day, that the greater mysteries were in possession of certain secret schools, but in the main, they themselves, having lost all connections with the mysteries, considered the assertions as mere vaporings of madmen or fanatics, and gave little or no heed to them. Had the Council of Nice been composed of initiated priests, there would be a far different story to tell, and much of the war rapine which have swept the world time and again since that era might have been wholly avoided. Um, that's an interesting thought, that the kind of Romanization of early Christianity, if it had been, if the teachings of the Nazarene had been interpreted by more spiritually aware individuals that might not have been doing it for their own reasons for control of populations where we might be, because obviously there's the Gnostic Gospels, which are very interesting to get into, and then and then you have the Cathari and the Albigensians, who were practicing. It's supposed we're practicing a very ancient form of Christianity that was uh, far different than than what we practice today. It was an individual relationship with God outside of any formal church setting, and a lot of their their group activities would take place outdoors, in fields, in wooded areas, in areas of beauty and nature, which in looking at Jesus's life, that's pretty much where he always taught. I mean, the Sermon on the Mount, for instance, would go right along with that theme, that you don't need uh, a roof over your head to have a relationship with God, right? But the Therapeutae of Alexandria was merely another name for a branch of the Essenian community. Thus, from these orders were derived the Christian mysteries preserved in the ancient archive, or the secret archives of the secret schools known only to initiates of advanced degrees. The secret doctrine was adapted from the earlier mysteries of the primitive Christians during the first 3 centuries of our era, before the First Council of Nice, 325 AD. With the burning of the great library of Alexandria, the supreme power of the established church in Western Europe obliterated the primitive wisdom. And there, when the library of Alexandria was torched, there was so much that was lost to the world, so much history. We may know a lot more about, like, let's say, the story of Atlantis, since Solon, a Egyptian priest, was the one who first told the stories of Atlantis to Plato, and there would have had to have been some kind of written records of it. And what was Atlantis really? Was it a worldwide um, uh, civilization, like similar to what we have today? That the entire planet itself was Atlantis, or was it just one continent that we're now unaware of, or are the ancient leftovers of the past, like Göbekli Tepe, or other the monolithic stone structures that you find all over the world that have been built on top of, are those the remnants of the Atlantean world? I'm sure that, Rick, you're probably really into that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, no, we've touched on Atlantis a few times on the conspiratainment show that we do. As a matter of fact, one of these times when you're not traveling all over the world, we need to figure out how to make that happen.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Well, let's line it up as soon as possible. Actually, let's get on that. That would be a lot of fun. I have a great book, Our Story of Atlantis, that would be fun to get into as well. That's a
But yeah,
very interesting
one of
read.
my theories about all the common archaeological sites. Trying to say that real quick when you're trying to talk fast. Um, I think I think Atlantis may have been a lot like the world we see today, where America and the Western world have had a great influence all over the place. I think Atlantis was doing a lot of the same things, which is why you see commonality in a bunch of different places where there really shouldn't have been commonality, and
Yeah, 100%.
also some things that make no sense with the technology of the time that they were able to do. I mean, some of these things were like built within an eighth of a degree of being like spot on with galactic north. You would think that would be impossible in that day and age without some sort of influence.
Yeah,
We
totally.
do have an alien in the chat, but I doubt he's
I
gonna
I
let us know
I
of his
love
take.
Alien Perspective. He's a fun one. He puts out some great memes. Some of his memes are a little naughty, and I can't retweet them, but I do enjoy them. But he writes, split a piece of wood, I am there, lift up the stone and you'll find me there. And that's, that's a great saying actually, because, in everything we had talked about that on one of the previous episodes, kind of the string theory,
Well, yeah.
this, the, and the energy of creation being inside of everything, even that which we don't see as being animated, like a stone or a piece of wood. We might not see the animation in it, the life in it, but if you look close enough, if you can really perceive it, you will find that the energy of creation is trapped in there, just as it is inside ourselves.
Well, yeah, and I think that was a very simplistic way of trying to say the very thing that we're talking about right now, because every single one of us is connected, all of us.
Yep.
And now that they're starting to be able to prove that out through quantum physics and everything else, I think we are probably a decade or so from having our entire life and everything that we understand about the world turned on our head if things keep progressing the way they are. And I'm not even sure it'll take a decade. I'm just being conservative in my time frame.
Yeah, man. I think there's something very exciting about it, and then also similar to what this book was just talking about, how in the Nicene Council they sort of cherry picked what they wanted and wrapped it up in a way that that suited their purposes, and may have contorted and altered the true teachings of the Nazarene to fit their mold, and their Romanized their pre-Christian religious traditions, and then folded all of that into what became organized Christianity. Because previous to that, similar to when Saul was running around preaching, the Christians back then used to have to meet in secret, because
Yeah.
they obviously stood the chance of of being murdered for whatever they were practicing. But so was there, what kind of practice was going on? Is there something that we're not privy to anymore, that they were almost like like the theory that that Jesus was the reincarnation of the Buddha or something like
Yeah.
that? Was there a Buddhistic meditative technique that was being introduced, that caused people to wake up out of their stupor and realize themselves as infinite, spiritual beings that are not just these one lifetime meat bodies that you can just boss around and poke and prod and tell to do this and tell to do that, and this is the way and this isn't the way. When you wake up from that stupor of being told what is and what isn't, and you cannot be told what is and what isn't anymore until you've come to a determination yourself, that's a hard person to control and manipulate.
Well, and I mean, we've talked about this. I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago. I firmly believe that the faith of Christianity was basically a shortcut for the universe to have us stop having to be on the hamster wheel for so long. Because
Totally.
I think when everything started, the universe was like, okay, everything's here, and I'm trying to understand what's happening here. So it started sending emissaries out, kind of like Deep Space Nine with the Changeling. But I think what happened is, along the way, the universe started figuring out, hey, apparently when we're in this form, we're a lot more stupid than we thought we were going to be. So I think we need a shortcut because this is taking too long. But
Yeah.
and I think there are so many things that are interconnected with almost every single faith. And I think this comes back to one of my favorite verses in the Bible, which is, not for now we see through a glass darkly, meaning we don't know the whole picture.
Mhm.
I think if you really study pretty much every organized religion, you're going to find the truth somewhere in the middle, kind of like when you're looking at news stories. You want to make sure you're getting stories from right, left, and center, because the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. And if you're not looking at all the perspectives, you're going to miss it. It's kind of the same thing with organized religion, because each part of it that somebody's glommed onto is a very important part. But what has always concerned me with the whole Council of Nicaea and everything else is those people were deciding what was able to be put into the Holy Scriptures.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have had that ability,
Yeah, totally.
because there are things that were part of that originally that aren't now. There's an entire section of books called the Apocrypha.
Yeah.
there are like entire gospels and entire chapters just missing because one of them was the Book of Enoch. They were like, nope,
Mhm.
can't have that in there because it talks about that weird, sky painting and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah,
Dude, that's that. Yeah, I
why do you
haven't
need
read the
to-
entire Book of Enoch. I have it, but I tell you, man, that's some wild shiza. you know, that's it. And when you think that is that text that ancient, and if it is, what so what's going on here, what are we being spoon fed, because it's wild, it's definitely wild. um I'm going to try and burn through some of this so that we're not still on this book 2 weeks from now. But it says here, all outward things are symbols or embodiments of pre-existing ideas, and out of the subjective ideal realm, all visible things have emanated or been brought into objective manifestation. There is a grand science known since the time of the Magi as magic. This science was a mystery to the masses during past ages and is little understood today, hence, feared by the ignorant and often ridiculed by the supposedly learned. This divine science and its initiates, nevertheless, have been active in all ages as certainly as the fraternities in which these initiates are masters in. In seeking magic, the neophyte finally becomes the magus, or wise man. All genuine initiation is an evolution and regeneration from within. The imagination, called in to assist the reason, may usurp its place or have its ally helplessly entangled in its web. Only he is in danger whose heart is impure, whose purpose is unholy. The employment of nature's universal symbolism instead of the technicality of languages rewards the humblest inquirer and discloses its secrets to everyone in proportion to his preparatory training to comprehend them. If their philosophical if their philosophical significance were above the comprehension of some, their moral and political meaning are within the reach of all. He who uses occult forces for selfish purposes will eventually destroy himself. So again, I just want everybody to know, I'm just reading areas that I just outlined real quick. So it's not going to be, it's non sequitur, I'm just reading you the things that jumped out at me when I first read this book. But this this part right here, the imagination called in to assist the reason may usurp its place or leave its ally helplessly entangled in its web. It's interesting because we used to do imagination exercises in my acting class with Manu, and they'd be as simple as imagine yourself in an environment like on a beach or in a forest or in some kind of clearing, and imagine all the things that are there. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the temperature? And just sitting there on stage in the acting class, and or imagine that you're peeling an orange, or imagine that you're making a sandwich, or whatever it is. And so you'd sit there with your eyes closed and you go into this imagination exercise. And it's fascinating how kind of nebulous it can become. Like it's it took some time when I first started in his class. It took some time to really be able to relax into the imagination exercise and not drift off into other thoughts, about the past, the future, or a bill I have to pay, or a person I want to talk to, or somebody I forgot to talk to, or whatever all of the other things are, and to be just completely and totally immersed and focused in the mind on whatever it is that is being imagined to be real. And after a while, though, it became an exercise that I longed for, for when, because that was one of the first things that we would do in class, was the imagination exercise, to free ourselves up from the mechanistic and reactive world, and to get into the creative. And how I remember so well how I would feel when he would bring us out of that imagination exercise, just so oddly present, like really present. So to be able to go into the imagination exercise and create a whole entire world that doesn't exist, and to come out of that and then see the world for what it is, there was like a wild uh, sensation of present time that was otherworldly. It's very cool. I should probably try and do those exercises again. I could use them. Um, it says intellectual cultivation alone, no matter to what extent it may be carried, and the farther it goes on in this one-sided way, the worse for all concerned, is in no sense an evolution. Perfect intellectual development without spiritual discernment and moral obligation is the sign manual of evil, popularly known as the devil. Intelligence without goodness is detrimental to the divine plan in the evolution of humanity. Um, can anyone say Bill Gates? Magic, i.e., id est, of the Magi is its true meaning, contemplates that all around development of the entire man, which liberating the intellect from the dominion of the senses and illuminating the spiritual perceptions, places the individual on the lines of least resistance with the inflexible laws of nature, and the Magus becomes nature's co worker or handmaiden. The real master conceals his power and employs it only for good purposes. He works without the hope of reward, knowing that God is just, believing that knowledge is power, designing an evil minded men desire to possess both knowledge and power for purely selfish purposes. The greater the possession of power a really selfish man has, the more inimical that the more sorry the more inimical to humanity he becomes. This is especially true of the arcane science, which deals in part with mental forces and the possibility of influencing the thoughts and actions of others. The traditional lost word of the master is a key to all the science of the soul. Term this science magic or what we will, but it must be remembered that the so-called lost word is not a word, but refers to a force, power, or energy activated by obedience to spiritual development. Jumping back up to here is this idea of using power for purely selfish purposes. It's odd. It reminds me of if anybody's familiar with Project Mockingbird, which was a project, which was a method of mass mind control that was developed by, well, they say the CIA, but I mean this goes back to even Roman times when they had these newscasters, so to speak, that would be in the different parts of town, and they had these little pedestals that they would stand on. They would deliver the news of the day and tell you what was going on outside of the Roman kingdom and all of that, or what the latest news of the day was, or gossip or whatever else, even though gossip was eventually made illegal in ancient Rome. But the point is that Project Mockingbird was a means of getting all of these different media personalities, journalists and whatnot, and people who are well known, be it in in the music business or acting business or whatever the case may be, and getting them all to repeat the same the same storyline. And that if you hear it from this source and then you hear it again from that source, and then you hear it from this this person that you respect, that suddenly it must be how it is. And that's a form of magic, being able to trick someone into believing something that isn't necessarily true. That's a magic trick. It's a type of hypnosis. And so we're all under certain levels of hypnosis based on how many lies or misrepresentations of truth that we've adopted over all these many years that we've been alive. There's most assuredly every single one of us are thinking with information right now at this very moment that is probably totally not true at all.
and was completely curated by the people in charge to try to stay that way. You're in my
Yeah.
conspiracy wheelhouse again, by the way.
Yeah, man. Yeah. If anybody out there, look up Project Mockingbird. You'll be fascinated by it. And then after that, if you really want to go on a deep dive, you can check out MK Ultra programming, which is diabolical indeed. But oh, my snoot just came in. Theodore has just.
I guess his nap's over.
That's not a ghost back there. That's Theodore.
I guess his nap's over.
Well, hello, Theodore. Yes, is nap time over? Hi, buddy. Does everybody want to see Theo? Let me see if I can get
Of
Theo
course.
to come up here. Theo, you want to come up here and say hello to everybody, don't you? Let me mark my place. Don't sneak away. Don't sneak away, sir. Come here. Oop, come here, buddy. Come here, pal. Oh, you're so heavy. You're so heavy.
Good. Dude,
Look at that guy.
Bigger since the last time you put him on camera.
Don't be scared, Catso. He's not mean. He won't growl at you. He's the sweetest guy you ever saw in your life. He just loves the huggies. Yes. Somebody needs a bath. Yes.
Yeah.
Love this guy. Look at him. Look at that guy. We could do a whole hour of just me hugging Theodore. Okay, go on.
We could
Scram,
actually probably
get out of
we
here.
could do that sometime and put it out as, what do they call that stuff now when it's like sensory soothing stuff? We could do like a whole
Oh yeah, totally, man. Just an hour of me snuggling a corgi. Who says that? Howdy, Theo the spy. Oh, it's you again. We talk later when silly Corky is sleeping. I never sleep. Although my wife did film me earlier in Snoozeville snoring away. She showed me the video afterwards because I don't believe that I snore, and I rarely do. But now she has evidence that at certain times I do. But today I was out doing some graffiti art with my buddy Nex. That's why I have painted fingers. And it got really hot out there. So for like about 2.5 hours out of the 5 hours we were painting, I got cooked. So when I showed back up at home, I was just dusted. I went into a serious snooze and started snoring. And don't you hold that against me, darling. But yeah, man, I think that it's just one of those things to just kind of be aware of. Like, are we being spoon-fed information from a source that desires us to think a certain way or believe a certain thing? And is it important enough to our own well-being to back away from information in general enough to where we can discern for ourselves through our own investigations what is really true to us? Good evening, Kevin. Good evening.
I mean, it's just amazing to me how many things have come out over the years that kind of prove that our government has always tried to basically keep us under thumb. They keep claiming that they don't, but almost everything they do in one form or another is designed to keep us under thumb. And I think why so many people have started waking up to it now is because that went like into major overdrive after COVID, because they just started trying to see how long they could keep us inside and how many freedoms we were willing to give up before we would finally say, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah,
And
man. I mean, without jumping the shark on subject matters here, boy, that wasn't because when they first started, making all these suggestions about what they were going to disallow us from doing, I was pretty damn well convinced that they were not going to pull that off, and I was absolutely flabbergasted and shocked to see how many people drank the Kool-Aid right out of the gate. I mean, the majority. In many places, it was a jaw dropper.
But that just shows how to tie this back to the topic, this just shows how well people have been programmed, because as soon as the government said you have to and it's for your own good, everybody was like, okay, cool, whatever.
Totally, man. Yes, and then the lemurs all follow, all go off the cliff together. Although I will say that whole thing about the lemurs going off of the cliff, that they follow each other, that was actually a complete fabrication. The dude herded them off the cliff and then reported it as this natural thing that occurred, and it wasn't true at all. He was a murderer of lemurs.
Well, to be fair, we're not trying to kill like white furred monkey looking creatures. We're talking about lemmings, not lemurs.
Yes. Oh, lemmings. Yes. You know what
I
I
don't, I
mean.
don't, I don't
The
want
L
hate mail.
thing.
I don't want hate mail about trying to kill like Zaboomafoo or
Yeah,
something.
the lemmings. The lemmings. Um, it's okay to herd lemons off of a cliff, but not lemmings.
Yeah.
So jumping back in, the traditional lost word of the master is a key to all the science of the soul. Term this science magic or what we will, but it must be remembered that the so-called lost word is not a word, but refers to a force, power, or energy activated by obedience to spiritual development. I love that little saying right there, because this search for the lost word, and like they say that Yahweh is a placeholder for the true name of God, and that only in the Holy of Holies, at certain, I think it's once a year or whatever in the Old Testament, the priestly class would be able to whisper the true name of God. But what is that? So, and it says here that it refers to a force, power, or energy activated by obedience to spiritual development. I mean, that's a powerful statement right there, that it's not a word, it's a force, it's a power, it's an energy that is activated when we're obedient to a higher spiritual path in life. uh, we're not hating on lemons, so to speak, by the way, J Packard Esquire, but they do give you a sour pucker face. So I'm just putting that out there. Pucker up. Um, the Magus has attained to soul consciousness. He has purified the heart so that it throbs with love for humanity. And through the reawakening of instinct and intuition, he holds the key to many of nature's laws, whereby he is enabled to accomplish his desires. He does not work contrary to natural law, but in harmony with them. The Magi's art is therefore based on a science far deeper and more exact than modern physical science has yet dreamed of, and back of it lies a philosophy as boundless as the universe, as inexhaustible as time, and as beneficent as the Father of heaven. All human progress runs in cycles. Modern materialistic science is having its brief day and must gradually take its rightful place. True philosophy has already undermined its foundation. The New Age will initiate a genuine revival of spiritual philosophy and an exact science of life. There is in nature, there is in nature one most potent force by means of which a single person, knowing how to direct it, could revolutionize and change the whole face of the world. It is a universal agent whose supreme law is equilibrium, and when controlled by science, it will be possible to send a thought in an instant around the world. Thought creates a vibration. The sound of a trumpet vibration destroyed the walls of Jericho. There is a life principle, a universal agent wherein all two natures and double current of love and wrath. This ambient fluid pervades everything. It is the body of the Holy Spirit, the universal agent, the serpent devouring its tail, symbol at once of continued youth and immortality of the soul plus unlimited power. The initiate alchemists were fully informed of this electromagnetic ether, this vital and luminous caloric force developable to a degree by everyone. It's interesting again that in the alchemists in ancient China, that when they were using this philosophical trickery kind of using this idea of the transmutation of base metals into gold, when they were talking about something that happens internally, that's and using this allegory as a means of explaining to someone that where they have a picture of it in their mind, and they can use that imagery and internalize it, and therefore that imagery becomes a type of a magic, in inner magic, which allows for us to see the potential of raising ourselves up out of a lower, more base condition into a heightened, more spiritual, um, type of reality or experience. And that the kings, the rulers of ancient China, when they would hear this, they weren't spiritually adept enough to understand that it was an allegory, and they would want these monks to actually change base metal into gold. And they'd be like, dude, that's not exactly what we're talking about. And they'd be like, okay, kill him. So a lot of these dudes started trying to, figure out ways of actually physically doing that just to save their lives. Oh man, we're up on the hour. So listen, if you guys are going to try and change some base metals into gold, do it internally. Don't do it in your kitchen or your garage, because it ain't going to work. Thanks so much for joining us. I can't believe that we went over by 50 seconds. And God bless all of you. Thank you for being here. I love to you all. And thank you, Rick and Kaler and Radio, for hosting this show. I will see you next Sunday.
Don't forget, folks, I am Corin Nimick on X. I'm Roderick73. Station is at KLR Radio. In the Crease is up next. Stay tuned.